but it's funny, it's funny seeing the different speakers. It's so interesting, and I realize I don't have an interest in comedians. The way I guess I've been sort of thinking to myself, oh, you've been interested in comedians lately. I have an interest in speakers. I have an interest in speakers and cadences and timing and storytelling and how they understand their audience while they're speaking, and how their audience changes what they're saying, and the speed and the tone. But the speed, tone, loudness, all of these things, it's like these are just technical things, but you notice as the feeling of a room is changing, and it's like you can see the crowd just by listening to the speaker. You don't even need to hear the audience. You can see them if you know the speaker well enough, you can see them, I feel. And, it's this sort of feedback. But then, you notice with some speakers, and it's like, great speakers. But maybe this is my personal feeling, but my personal feeling, remains supreme to me. And I cannot take it for granted that these are great speakers. And, you listen to Martin Luther King, and I have a dream, and he's sort of singing high off the mountaintops. A man can see far, far away, and it's, you can hear it. And I haven't even listened to his speeches in an in-depth way, but I can tell it's, slight indirectness. I can tell, but it's, maybe that's an inappropriate thing to say without listening to his speeches, but I know I do not need to listen to his speeches to know this, to know that fact. And I have a similar feeling with James Baldwin, even though he makes incredible points, and I've actually been quite moved by a few of his speeches, but the way he speaks, the language he uses, it's like getting caught up in the semantics sometimes, instead of like, almost, but like not to a very direct effect. And, and even the use of the phrase one should do this in our society if we are to, it's like, that is the most indirect thing you can say to anyone. It's like, you're not speaking to a one. You're speaking to a person. You're speaking directly to a human being. And, I don't think great speaking comes from this idea of people that you're speaking to. I think it comes from, speaking directly to them. And the best speeches sort of originate in conversation, that you're having a direct conversation, but not just with one person. And it's the ability, the capacity to hold the many people that you're communicating with. And this is, to me, what make great speeches. And it's like, oh, so how many great speeches have you listened to? And it's like, oh, just a few comedians. Just a few comedians. And Malcolm X, I find incredibly direct. And he does not speak without intention. He doesn't speak without the purpose of getting you somewhere. And it's like, even though it's like he won't force you there, he won't drag you there, he'll make his points. And his points may sound emotional, because they are emotional, because they have feeling behind them, and they have feeling that you would resonate with. And it's, and he does this with intention, but it's not based in nothing that there are feelings. It's not based in nothing that when I say Birmingham, Alabama, and you know what I'm talking about, that it brings up a certain feeling in you. And it's like, 4 little girls burning. And it's like, it's not based in nothing that John Coltrane, I would say felt nearly as deeply and strongly about that incident as Malcolm X did. And it's, and then you sort of, and he wrote music signifying the pain of that event, of that of that church being bombed and those 4 little black girls dying. And there's something, it's speaking to life itself. It's speaking to the realness of our lives, of our existence. And this is why, to me, like, Malcolm is so powerful as a speaker. But, you look back to the Nation of Islam, you might hear a different black Muslim speaker just as powerful as Malcolm, to be honest, and the communication, the clarity of communication, and in the intention of speaking. And it's, to me, very exciting that there's like this whole culture of speaking that was being generated, that was being created, that was being brought out of this community at that time. And FIPO, and no one knows what FIPO means, for inspirational purposes only. And to me, like, this entire culture of great speaking and like breeding it, encouraging it, diving more and more into it, it's like, oh man, that is like, we do not need to go to Mecca. It's like, this is the Mecca of life itself, to me. This sort of, but that's blasphemous to say something like this. But that is actually how I feel. And it's like where art lives, where life is thriving in a very intense way. We do not need to go on these great pilgrimages, if we wish to see God. We may see God through these other pilgrimages. And what an interesting experience that'd be, an art pilgrimage. Like, what would an art pilgrimage look like? And it must be traveling through the best creations. It must be traveling through them. It must be experiencing them in the most intimate ways. And this is what I imagine it means to go to Mecca. This is what I imagine it means to go on this pilgrimage and to climb these mountains and to walk these lands and to pray in the land with all these other people wishing to go on this exact same experience, to be closer to God. It's like, to me, it's like, there must, and it's terrible to say equivalent, there must be an equivalent. And that's a rude thing to say, but I feel this intensely. And we have personal pilgrimages into life, into art, that deepen our sense of life and art, and our sense of source, and I'll stop saying into life, I'll say source. It deepens our connection with source. And, and I find this through film as well, very intensely. Through very powerfully made films, that this is something. And it's all a matter of resonance, in the vaguest way. But I hate to be vague. I don't like the concept of being vague. I don't want to swindle you, or I don't want to swindle myself into being fascinated by something because it sounds nice. But it's, so to clear up some of this vagueness, to resonate, and it's like, and I felt this watching the movie Fantastic Planet. And for some reason, for no other reason, I've known of Malcolm X my entire, for a good portion of my life. I've never dived into him, and I've known of James Baldwin, just through Instagram, really, for the last 2 years maybe. I've been seeing all these different clips of him speaking, and I did have this impression. It's like, what a thoughtful man in James Baldwin, from just a 90-second clip of listening to him speak. But it was through watching this film called Fantastic Planet, and I forget exactly what was the encouragement. It was my friend Vic who told me about, oh yeah, just like this clip looks like something like Fantastic Planet. Oh, that's an interesting film. Maybe I'll see it. Like, I've seen clips of this before, and I always thought it was interesting. Why not have a look at it deeply? And I looked and I watched it deeply, and it's, the story of it. The story of the human beings being the fly-like creatures on this alien planet, and like completely not second class. They're, if they were pets, they were, that was the best outcome, than the wild humans that were forced out into the wilderness and, destroyed like pests, like cockroaches, casually, and, toyed with like ants, and killed by these alien teenagers and kids casually, and then by adults in a more serious, like, oh, this infestation sort of way must be eliminated. And seeing the way that they organized together, seeing the way that they came together, and revolted, and maybe the ending did not do the build-up of the film justice, but I'll refrain from ruining it, because I actually do hope that, it's like, it's watched. I hope it's watched. I hope it's unruined if anyone were to listen to this. And, literally, the struggle between the human and the alien somehow encouraged me to jump into listening to James Baldwin, and then hearing about the civil rights movement more in depth, and hearing about the divide between black and white. And it's like, and one debate, not quite a debate, I guess 2 speeches back to back with James Baldwin and Bucky, I think his name was, and it's and it's like he moved me listening to him speak, and sort of looking into it a little bit more. I could not help avoid. I could not have missed seeing Malcolm X. And then Malcolm X has opened a gateway into the most direct thought, the most direct feeling, about what is it that you wish to say, what is it that you wish to do with your time. And, and as soon as he said, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad recommends that we find land, that we dig the clay up and make bricks, that we cut the trees down and make timbers and make our own homes, and build our own factories, and make our own economy where the black man can thrive, because for the last 400 years we've been building up another country that we don't have a place in, and we're begging to sit at a table and to eat with the white man. We're begging to drink from the same fountains. We're begging to sit in the same part of the bus. And that's, this is an undignified method of approaching freedom. And it's like, damn, man, so direct and incredible. And incredible, this talk of land, this talk of living off of the land. It's like, literally, that sparked something in me. And then just being interested in Malcolm and like his whole life is this beautiful, you do not need to sing when you talk, when your life sings for you. Your life sings, and that's by the depth of your feeling that it sings. And it's incredible, man. It's absolutely incredible to me. And even the way he died, and the thought of him dying, he knew he was going to die. And it's like, it'd be best that I don't back away from telling the truth, even though I know it has put me in a terrible situation. And not just me, that, it has been a conversation with my wife, Betty, and our daughters, that, like, I could go into hiding, I could escape all of this, and, possibly avoid most definite death. It's a conversation we had after the firebombing of our home. And, and don't be looking at me like, oh, Malcolm, I ain't afraid of no bombs. But now you see, I got 4 daughters, and it's reprehensible that whichever men that are out to kill me would, even imagine harming these 4 beautiful girls. And, and but he came to the conclusion that it would be best to die telling the truth, to meet the consequences of telling the truth. And it'd be best, as agreed with his wife, that it'd be best, that even if he does die, that his kids will be able to look onto his name with dignity, that he did not shudder in the face of the truth and face the consequences. And it's like, what a powerful man. What a powerful man. And it's like, this is the actual spirit of the warrior. It's like the undeniable spirit of the warrior. And I feel ashamed saying this, because I've used this phrase before, but without this depth of feeling. And look at me, I shudder away. I shudder away from the possibility of even getting fined. I shudder away from the least of consequences. But it's not just because of the consequences I shudder away, but it's like, what is the thing that I believe in doing forever? Is the serious question. And it's like, and to this, and it's like, if I am to redeem any weaknesses that I've, allowed myself to suffer, it's like, what is the thing that I would do forever? And if I cannot die for this thing, but this is intense talk, maybe. This is intense talk, but it's the thing that I would do forever, and I can make this plain. And the thing that I would do forever is having a positive relationship with the earth. And living directly. And growing food. And building homes. And digging the clay. And making the bricks. And making community. Building it directly. And not sitting here and being robbed. At least in the civil rights movement. It's like it was very clear that you were being persecuted for being black, and you were being punished for being black, and it was very obvious what had to be done, and not necessarily what had to be done, but what the enemy was. And nowadays they don't care if you're black. They don't care, and it's like ultimately it's like you can be whatever color. It doesn't matter. It seems to be much more about your class than anything else. And how much you pay for rent, how much you pay for food, your inability to afford these things with whatever work you are able to manage. It's like that seems to be the dividing factor. And we still want to live in areas that see the most increase in the extraction of wealth. When we can grow food. When the cost of building a home, it has not increased. The cost of the energy required to build a home has never increased. It's only become easier to build a home. And if we source the materials ourselves, it's even cheaper. It's even cheaper. So it's like the energy required to build a home has not increased. It has not inflated. But yet, from the time when our parents were going to buy homes to now, it has dramatically increased the cost of the property. But not just the cost of the house that the property sits on. Because the house generally, at least in metropolises, it does not sit on a vast amount of property. It sits on a small square lot, that within your lifetime will likely be bought off of you. If you own it, if you were lucky enough to own it, and to be replaced by something denser, to produce even more income in a such a lucrative sort of situation, and it should not be this lucrative. This is it's not natural, and all of the politicians that are sitting there saying that there is a housing crisis. And they continue to evict people out of encampments without somewhere to go. They extend the lease of shelter hotels knowing that this is, part of a permanent situation. Oh, it's just until we build more shelters for people. Because that is actually the permanent situation. And it's the amount of homelessness is not decreasing. And fundamentally, this is what needs to be attacked, not the amount of shelter space, because there's always going to be an increasing need for shelter space as long as the fundamental problem of housing is not solved. And the fundamental problem of housing is that it is too expensive, and it is becoming and is continuing to be more and more expensive, at the cost of the people that would live in the house. Right, and then the less people that are able to own a home, now they're renting, and now there's more and more people competing as renters to rent spaces, and now it's a much better market for anyone owning property, for the landlords to increase the rent, because they know there's going to be another renter coming by that would have been a would-be house owner that can pay this rent. And then, the people that would have barely been able to afford a rent, what are they doing? And it is a long line, and everyone's getting pushed out the back, and then you fall right out the bottom of it. You fall right out the bottom of it into a park, into staying on a couch until you wear out that welcome, staying with your family until that welcome gets worn out, and then you might drift into a shelter, have a few unsavory experiences, and then what? You find yourself in a park because it's a little more peaceful than what's been going on. And then you're going to kick these people out to go where? Just out of your sight, because that's the problem. As if the symptoms of cancer are the problem. And it's like, as if the symptoms are the problem. It's like, it is the cancer that is, and the cancer in this city is not the homeless. It is not homeless people. The cancer in the city is Doug Ford. And not having rent control on any buildings built after 2018. And you see all of these new condos being built, and I repeat myself often, but you see all of them being built, and it's, who is that for? If it's not affordable, who is that for? Thank God we cut all the red tape, for the developers, so that we can finally build housing to help all these people that are struggling to own a home. This is not for their benefit. If there is no rent control, this is not for anyone's benefit. If there's no rent control, because these units can be increased. The cost of renting them can be increased dramatically, between one tenant to another, and then these landlords are incentivized to kick tenants out so that they don't have to continue to receive such small fees for all that they do for these ungrateful tenants, and it's like, so you have people being incentivized, you have these rent evictions being incentivized just by having no rent control, and the people that are suffering most are the people that are least able to afford staying in this fucking place. And so if you ever hear Doug Ford talking about the importance of housing, it's like, it is a farce. And it's like, and it's great that we get to, not think about him directly, because it's all these other people involved. And it's the housing minister's policy that he agreed to, and he trusts his housing minister and this and that. And we won't have an opportunity to change any of this until 2026. And you make sure you vote, because this is the most important day, to have a say in how things are managed around you. And I believe all of this is too indirect, and it all amounts to begging. It amounts to begging. And I pray, and it's like, and we were so happy and grateful when Olivia Chow came into office. Who was cheering? Who was so happy to see the change from John Tory to Olivia Chow? And we know not what she does, besides showing up at these wonderful events, smiling, shaking hands, saying, oh, we need to do this, and happy with the progress, and we're going to make all these changes, making great deals, lovely. She sits down with Doug Ford, shakes his hand. Oh, great, we've secured a deal for this and that. And it's like, damn, and it's a shame that I do not know more deeply about politics, but I do know, I do see that, as she's showing up at these events and smiling and shaking hands, she's not walking through encampments and shaking anyone's hands, because the cops are clearing them out so that she can walk through these parks and, have these public events and look as if she's, this wonderful mayor, but it's a lot of the same things that were happening during John Tory's uh, being mayor are happening today. And it's like, if you are homeless, like, I don't know what difference you're seeing, with this new progressive mayor. It's like, I don't know what difference you're seeing. Oh, I heard the Gardner Express is being taken care of, but this, it's like, how many decades has this been an ordeal? And it's like, I guess vague deals are being cut in order to move money around to fix this massive debt that we're in. We're still paying for shelter hotels that cost hundreds of millions of dollars. It's like that, that don't reduce homelessness, that don't get people out of homelessness. It's, they become breeding grounds for drug dealing. They become, sort of hellholes. They become very similar to shelters with more amenities, and maybe a door to divide you between this and the next person, which is like, isn't that all you need? Isn't that enough? Isn't that enough? And I'm so grateful to have participated in that project. 2 steps home. Because it doesn't fundamentally fix anything. It doesn't fundamentally fix the ultimate problem, but it is definitely, in comparison to a shelter, in comparison to a shelter hotel, I believe this option is like, and from seeing people live in this option, and it's like, it seems better. And to me, and it's something that is lacking in many resources, and it's like, oh, you're speaking on behalf of everyone? Well, I guess I've gotten a chance to speak to a few people, and from these few people that I've had the opportunity to connect with about this, and from speaking to other people that have, had interviews and conversations with hundreds more, people that are experiencing homelessness, that have stayed in tiny shelters, that have stayed in these tiny home communities, or just living rough wherever they are. It's like, right, it seems like these kinds of communities that encourage much more autonomy, that encourage much more involvement in the maintenance of the community and being involved in making it a space that is hospitable, and also being involved in its security and keeping your community safe and having roles in this community. It's like, this is extremely important, and this is something that you see in encampments, even though it's chaotic and terrifying, and it's like day to day, it's like the dangers are real. There are hunters, people are being hunted, there's sex trafficking, there's drug dealers trying to claim territory. It's like, it's bad. It's bad, but it's, you're taking the best aspects of living in a community and putting it in a place with more safety. You're putting it in a place with more security. You're putting it in a place with running water and showers and laundry. And it's like, but you live at your own schedule. You're not being woken up at this and time, just to make sure you're alive. As if this is for your benefit. It is not for you. It is for the organization's liability that they come into your room at 4 a.m. to make sure you're alive. It's not, for your benefit that they have these strict rules about being back. And if you're not back by this time, you've lost your spot. As if that's a reasonable way to treat someone. It's like, you didn't follow this one stipulation, now you don't get to sleep inside today. That's insane. And it's like all of these practices that have been taken for granted that no one has to think about, because as long as they're not outside, and I don't have to think about it, I won't. And it's like, right, everyone that is fighting on the behalf of the people that are actually homeless, it's like, thank God, actually fighting to do something that makes sense. And that doesn't cost $300 million a year. We're wondering why we're in a fucking debt hole. And it's like, dude, why are we doing things that are so ridiculously expensive? There's a cost-effective way that works better for the people involved. And this is when I'm returning to 2 steps home, to the tiny home community model. And it's like so effective, I believe, in comparison. But again, this is one small thing, really. It's fundamentally one small thing that can be done. And it's like, but we don't want to create permanent slums. You are creating permanent slums and shelters, and the idea that these shelters will ever be empty is not a thought that is considered by politicians because they are persistently full. And the only reason that they seem temporary is because it is artificially made temporary, to the people that use them, which is also very inconvenient. You have to leave. You have to leave every so often, every 3 months, and it's shorter periods of time, as well. And it's like, right. And at least from my understanding from seeing different tiny home communities, it's like, if you get to keep your place, you're in a much more stable situation. If you get to keep a place where you can see caseworkers come and work with you, you can, get your ID mailed, you can secure your medicine, you can see doctors can come and see you. It's like, damn, man, it's like so much better. Such a better situation for anyone that's experiencing homelessness. Obviously. And, I'll stop speaking on the behalf of anyone, because I'm certain. And I've heard also as well, it's like, thank God for shelters. Thank God that they exist, because what would I do if they didn't? It's like, damn, man, it's like, for real. And it's like, they must be acknowledged as well, that it's needed. But I come back to a larger point, that the more and more people that live here, and the higher things are becoming in cost, we see the trend of the situation. We see where this is going. And I say, if you see where this is going, it's like, are you going to stay on the train that's leading off of a cliff? Are you going to wait to see if it can right itself, or are you going to jump off early? To what? To what? To Whitby? To Hamilton? To where? It's the same thing everywhere else. I swear to you, there is an alternative. And I've said this alternative. And this alternative, which I will stop using that word, because it is the thing I will do for the rest of my life. This is how deeply I believe in it. It's like, I feel like this is the most appropriate situation to be in. It comes back to community. And it comes back to not praying at elections that we've, hired the right person to represent us. It is representing ourselves. It is doing for ourselves directly what will not be done on our behalf, which is providing ourselves with housing, appropriate housing. It is creating community where we can exist and thrive in, and I believe, that we have the capacity to do this. I unendingly believe in this, just because I've seen it. You go on woof.ca, you can see all these different communities of people building homesteads, building lives out of the dirt, and they're finding different ways to manage it. And it's incredible, all the way from Haida Gwaii, all the way from northern BC, New Hazelton, Smithers, down to Vancouver Island, all across the country, all the way out to Nova Scotia. You can see these communities thriving in just Canada. And these are intentional communities. Some of them are intentional communities. And it's like intentionally living together, trying to live off of the land, trying to live in a way that is in better relationship with the earth. And it's like, and it does not cost you your entire life. It does not cost you all of your energy to come up short in. It's, you are able to do this. It's doable in a very comfortable way. And it's like this idea that you lose the amenities, that you don't get to have hot running water, that you don't get to have refrigerators and food and freezers and get to store meat. You have to sacrifice. It's like, no, you have to plan. Instead of just handing someone over, half of what you just did, maybe 80 hours of your life, instead of just handing someone over 80 hours of your life to be able to flick a switch and not think about it much, it's like maybe you hand over, let's say 10, and you do a little wiring. Or you hand over 10, you get a friend that can do a little wiring, and then you have solar. And you just plan. You have to plan more, because you're in charge. It is not up to other people. It's not up to all these vague faces that you do not trust, that you do not know, to come and you trade lots of your time for them to, provide you with the necessities, with the comforts that you take for granted. No, you will not take these things for granted because you will build them. You will plan for them and you will create them, or you will participate in the creation of them. And it's, and this is what happens in these communities. And you become knowledgeable, you become skillful just by existing. Just by existing. And what a fruitful education to see where electricity comes from. It comes from the sky, believe it or not. It's like energy is available to us directly. The food is not from the grocery store, it's from the dirt. It's available to us directly, and you participate in the growing of the healthiest food you can possibly eat, the most satisfying meals you can have. And it's like, and it's so much less energy, ultimately, so much less energy than what we must spend in order to exist in this place that does not have an appropriate relationship with the earth, that does not care about us directly and our needs directly and our need for community and our need to stay in the same place and our need to be able to afford the place, to be able to persist through time. It's like, there's no persistence through time. It's on shakier and shakier ground. And you have to secure more and more for yourself. And then you get these trends of people like trying to get more and more and more out of other people in order to secure their place here. This is unnecessary in states of abundance, and this is the thing that I believe will be created by more and more and more people going to learn how to live off grid, learning these skills and joining communities and building networks of communities to live in a way that's appropriate with the earth. And this is the bringing of the new earth. This is the bringing of the new earth. This what we see here, all of this concrete, all of this infrastructure to provide for so many people, to have it be so centralized and so centrally controlled and dictated by people that we will never meet. To be dictated by people that will never meet us and understand our individual needs. This is centralized. The future is decentralized. Our future is direct. Our future is cheap. Our future is cheap. And the land itself, getting raw land. Imagine this. You go to look for raw land. You see in some places you can get land $1,000 an acre, $2,000 an acre. How big is a lot that a 4,000 square foot house sits on? Is it a quarter of an acre? Is it less than that? And it's like, and you're paying millions. You're paying millions of dollars. You're paying an entire lifetime. So, instead of paying an entire lifetime for less than a quarter of an acre, I want some nice stone and, very large windows and this and that, and endless bills. Endless bills. Let's consider buying a piece of raw land with a nice, amount of trees on it, maybe a body of water, hopefully, or a creek running through some bit of it, and we build a home. And we figure ourselves the cost of building an appropriate home for ourselves. It comes in much cheaper. It comes in much cheaper. And when we dig a well and we're getting water pumped up into the home, it comes in much cheaper. And you're getting a better source of water. And you know what pipes the water is running through. You ever see an old home in Toronto? If you don't have a filter on your tap, I recommend it. There's a tabletop filter that you can screw right onto the faucet, does not require any skill whatsoever, immediately improves the quality of your life by drinking this, because whatever the fuck is in the tap water, I assure you, you don't want all of it. I'm certain of this, and it's like whatever your pipes are shedding off into your water, you probably don't want all of that either. But it will be cheaper. It will be cheaper, and there's just so many things I have to say about it, and I'm saying it in a fluster. I haven't, coordinated the words appropriately to the best way to deliver them to you. And it's like I'm a budding speaker. I'm a growing speaker. I'm not a master. You know, I'm just spitting. I'm just spitting and sputtering at the baby table. But the message is clear, though. The message is clear, and the message is leave. You know, if you feel it in you, if you feel capable of making this leap, and, you know, maybe this is what I should be doing. I should be sharing more and more information about making this leap, about making this leap possible. You know, instead of killing yourself here, it's like you can kill yourself over there, and you know, have 4 mansions for yourself maybe, in a matter of 6-7 years, instead of, you know, a quarter of one in a lifetime. But I don't know who you would want to impress. You know, who you would need to impress by your security, because security, when you live directly with the earth, is not in money. It is not in money necessarily. Security is in community. Security is in understanding and knowledge of food and growing it, and knowledge of building, and knowledge of solar systems, and knowledge of working on things and fixing them yourself. This is security. That is actually security. And don't get me wrong, you need money. You're going to continue to need money. But the amount of money you need is going to be much less. You know, if you live in a off-grid situation appropriately. And I believe, you know, unlike maybe our older peers, that we can do away with a few avocado toasts, you know, and $10 espresso lattes in order to create the situation. But you don't have to do away with any espresso lattes, really. And you'll still be able to get your avocados and make toast anyways. But I digress. I absolutely digress. But it is there. The message is there. The message is clear. And I feel maybe it is going to be a part of my work to communicate more this path, this possible path. Not that you should follow in these footsteps, but at least see that there is a trail. See that there is a trail that leads away from this situation. And we can get off of the train and go somewhere secure. That this is perfectly possible. It is perfectly possible. And if you cannot live without the nightclubs, without being surrounded by the bustling people, without sitting in traffic for hours, you know, then stay. Do whatever you feel. But if this resonates with you, if this connects with the thing in you that makes you feel most alive, then please follow along, you know, or please dive. I hope this is an encouragement to dive into the thing that makes you feel most alive, you know, because this is what I'm speaking about for myself directly, and as the thing I would do forever. It's like, yes, and I would do it forever, honestly, to afford myself more of the opportunity to be with the source, to be with what gives life its great flavor, and to spend more of my time creating, to spend more of my time being closer to the most intimate, beautiful things, and participating in them. And to me, that is living closer to nature. To me, these opportunities have been greatly afforded to me living in situations where I was living much more directly with nature. And yeah, so I highly recommend it.